those days when we were teaching in the goat shed.
Happy days.
There was hay and straw everywhere. It was like two little goats shagged up to me. It was great. You know, Goff used to say, "Can you send one of the boys over?" He used to say. You know, me and Goff were really close back in the day. Right. So what I'm gonna do, we are live. So Anne, don't say anything so silly. And whilst you guys are talking and getting out your news, I'm just gonna eat a sandwich, if you don't mind. So we're gonna do that. So first of all, what we're gonna do, Bronze Age British Wonders. We're gonna start off. We're gonna ask Anne, have you got any news for us this week, which is Bronze Age, archaeologically speaking, something of archaeological interest? Over to you, Anne.
You're muted.
Well, you can lip read, can't you? Come on, Anne. Oh, I can't be bothered with this.
Morning,
Right, okay.
morning.
Yeah, good.
I heard about a Bronze Age house in Barry.
Oh, this morning. Yeah, actually,
And
that's a good thing because we're doing a Bronze Age.
And it was excavated a while, you know, in the 80s. But there was no report done because there was animosity between the one thing and another. And really, I was saying to Carl, I said, you know, there should be a pile of artifacts there. You know, there should be a spoil pile for people who could go and look at least, and you know, find some artifacts at least. You know, yeah. So that was Bronze Age. um, and it was probably Iron Age as well.
That's right.
And there was sort of Viking remains nearby there, but it's certainly an interesting site. It doesn't look interesting because it's an old rubbish dump, but it could be a lot more there than is at the moment.
Exactly. And do you know what? In all these years of doing archaeology, I always I always I've not failed to be amazed when I'm talking about a problem and I'm saying, look, you will, I could approach the council and see if we could do anything about saving this site. And you know, some of you guys haven't heard about this, but the point is, it's a site that was excavated, as Anne said. It's been left exposed. The Bronze Age archaeology has been destroyed, but there's a little bit of work that we could do there. I could do there. And Anne turns around and says, "Oh, you know, you keep telling us about spoil heaps, and spoil heaps of archaeologists usually contain artifacts still." And I'm just thinking, excavate the spoil heaps, because I can remember when at Cosmester Medieval Village, I can remember going to the top of the mound one day to I don't know what I was doing. When I was working at Cosmester Medieval Village, and I used to find bits of medieval pottery, really nice bits of medieval pottery, and this was medieval pottery that was discarded by the archaeologists working on the village. And I used to think, oh, right, okay, so you know, if supposed professionals can put things in a spoil heap, and there's a young lad of 10 years old at Cosmeston can find these things, and surely the same thing can be in a spoil heap at a Bronze Age site. Anyway, thanks for that, Anne. That was very, very useful.
Okay.
Pat, did tell us about your meeting on Friday. You guys in Bridgend all met apparently.
Yes, there was just four of us, and we had coffee and talked, and then we had cakes and coffee and talked. So it was quite pleasant, very pleasant.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. And my friend that lives in Port Albert told me about BBC iPlayer. You know, they have these programs on. There's one called Ancient Worlds, and you just go to your BBC iPlayer, and they've got all the way back and all the way forwards. I think, you
Mm,
6 different episodes, and he goes all around.
ancient world.
Yes, so ancient world.
Funny enough, I just saw a a link for ancient world and aliens, and I thought, oh, Glenda, she must watch that.
I was just going to
Well,
say, Glenda.
we
Yeah.
did see Glenda on Friday, and Bill, myself, because it's my birthday, you see, on Sunday. So, so
Happy
Anyway,
birthday.
we made an
happy
excuse
Yeah.
to have a cake.
happy birthday, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, right, Del, anything from you? Thanks for that, Pat. Anything from you guys?
Yes, I've been looking on my little wanders around Puffcall.
Oh yes, you were on about your wells.
Oh, not the wells this time. It's the boundary stones, boundary markers.
Yeah.
They're marked on the maps, or some of them are, but there are more around than I think are marked on the maps. They look as though they're mooring stones because they've got these things where it looks as though they've been rubbed by ropes and stuff. But because of where they are, I can't think of any time when the sea was that high. So I think they're just boundary markers, ancient ones. I'm trying to get pictures of them all.
Good idea, Del, and we'll have a little look someday. And one thing that I would say is that usually, there was somebody explaining something on the radio today, and he said he went to the old town that he used to live, and basically it was in the middle, and all the rest of it had been built up, and he said he can't find all the old hedges and stuff. And sometimes what you do find is these markers may be maybe to do with old field patterns, and they're still there, and may have been rubbed up by sheep and goats and all the rest of it. So lots of things that we find around our towns and cities are actually really out of context now. So
what about post? What were they called? Post for roundhouses, the post stops.
Oh, yeah, but he's not talking about that. No, he's not talking about that. No, not talking about that. That's something else. Goff, anything from you, lovely?
Nothing. Well, I sent you that article about the the huge new ancient city found in the Amazon.
Yeah, yes, we do that tonight, and we get really into it. Yes, we do. Yeah, carry on.
No, that's all I had. I sent that to. That was the last Tuesday. I sent you that after the meeting. So if we're going to discuss it, great. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Peter, you're after Richard. Anything from you, Rich?
No, only I just sent you an email with that Roman Horde site.
Okay, I'll look at that, and we'll do that for next Wednesday. That's good. Thanks.
Nothing else.
Right, who's left? Peter.
Me. I wouldn't be surprised if you've already covered it in one of your meetings, but did you see the obsidian cores found off the coast of Italy, and they reckon it's a Neolithic shipwreck?
No, we haven't covered that at all. Tell us more, Peter.
Oh, now I've got to find it. I thought you would have already done it.
No.
Capri.
Yeah, go on. Well, who's going to talk about that?
Oh, go on then. I don't have anything up ready, so if Henry, if you've got something, you can
nor
read.
do I. All I know is I came across it. They found the shipwrecks off the island of Capri, obviously the Bay of Naples, and I think there's one.
Yeah, there's not actually much sign of any boats, but they reckon they got a date from something. I don't know how they got it from a core, but I think the latest date is something like 5000 BC or something like that.
For a ship, that's quite amazing.
Yeah. I can't find it.
Right, so hopefully somebody can. So who have we got left now? We've got Henry. Give us a bit of news.
Early Christian mosaics found in Roman villas in Bulgaria, dating from 106 AD.
Oh, right, okay, go on.
106 AD.
Very precise.
106.
106.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, that is very precise.
It was on a Monday morning.
You showed one on a Tuesday.
Mm.
So I'm afraid
Bloody
that's
hell.
about as much as I've got at the moment.
106 AD.
I'm trying to find your Neolithic.
Oh, yeah.
106 AD.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Oh, and there's a guy fined in Ireland, fined £50,000 for digging up lime kilns, but they were only, yeah,
Yes.
but they were only Victorian. You know, they were only like 19th century, but it wasn't, but they do, they do fine people because they take it, I think they take it more seriously over in Ireland, even though it's Northern Ireland, they've got just as much. I wonder who does the Northern Irish archaeology then? Is it Britain? Is it like,
Dave does.
hmm?
Right, okay, then we're gonna crack on.
Yeah.
So anyway, welcome everybody for joining us. Thanks for everybody's news. And we are gonna crack on. So let's get on to the images and 8 people. And did Bill say he was coming back?
No.
Oh, he didn't.
Is that what this was
Okay.
all about? Getting Bill back?
Yes, we
Oh.
only do this to get Bill back. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
He does moan a lot. Right, okay then. Right, so let's crack on to share. And we're gonna go. Let's get these images on, and let's get off. And maybe what I might do is a little bit about a little bit of a taste to what we did yesterday, right? And I know I mentioned some of this to the guys this morning, right? But we did this on Tuesday. So what I'm going to mention is that at this minute I'm going through quite a lot of my archaeological work, and I'm publishing it, which is the right thing to do. And I've got in the region of 200 archaeological reports to get done, which have been accumulated over the best part of 30 years. Some of them are large scale excavations, some of them are small finds. But this is one of the things I'm doing to sort of get my brain back into these things is the small fine stuff, and I'm finding lots of it extremely interesting because so some of the material out there that we've recorded and is of quite a lot of interest. And this isn't an exception. This is I won't spend as long on this as I did this morning, but we've got a piece of Roman pottery, that in the one in the middle, a big piece, which is Colchester Samian, which is a rip-off of Roman Samian that came from northern France, Gaul, and this is produced in about the 300s. So it's quite decorated, but it's not as good quality as the actual proper Roman Samian, which is actually the small piece there. That's more lustered, more finer. The one on the right is a piece of Roman Samian ware from the likes of France. And then weird things that you find whilst you're field walking. That object there is a piece of pipe clay that is actually a Roman piece of pipe clay, which would have been from some kind of figurine. The white object there, and these objects were all found by an excursion party that was out in Colchester, and you can see the ribbed piece of brick there, which is a piece of tile brick. We've collected lots of these over the years, and it was part of a box tile. And it's when people talk about metal detecting enthusiasts always find coins and so on. So do archaeologists. You can just basically make out an image on this coin. This was actually found by Michelle in the same field, and it was you can see there the neck of a horse, you can see the head, and you can see the front leg. And the other interesting thing about this is that you've got a wheel of some kind of chariot, and that's the chariot behind the animal. So that's going to be identified and worked out who this is actually associated with next week. And it might actually it's from a Roman landscape. It's obviously from that date, but it might actually be quite an early Roman coin, or it might actually be much earlier, because the figure that's dedicated here, you can just make out a head, you can make out something behind trailing, you can make out a bust. And if we and this is quite a strange shape of a Roman emperor's head, and I'm thinking it could be a rip-off local coin. It could be a very, very late Iceni coin. And if it is, it's a very, very rare coin. And these things can be found in fields, and whilst you're out walking, and whilst you're experiencing the landscape. So two other bits of news that we will be doing tonight is we will be getting to grips with the likes of burnt mounds, and we'll be getting to grips with the mole cape, the golden mole cape. But as I said last night, the issue to do with burnt mounds is extremely complex, and it's typical type sites for the Bronze Age. And the burnt mounds, the burnt mounds that we will be looking at this week are just two of the big ones. There's one on mainland Orkney. It's this one, which is known as the Little Burnt Mound, and we'll be looking at the Sanday Burnt Mound as well as the Mole Cape. So whether we take a break this evening, I don't know, but sometime along the line, we'll be looking at the wonderful find in the Amazon basin, and we'll be then looking quite extensively at the mosaic find as well, that we already know about. But when people like me, being involved in archaeology for quite some years, saying nope, the Roman military did not leave Britain, it integrated. The Roman civilization didn't leave Britain. It's still all the way around us. And now what we're starting to find out is that's the case, and that there's this integration in the Roman era of Roman civilization with our own civilization, and that's being borne out by one such find at Chedworth. And when we think about rewriting history, it's certainly something that we're very much redoing all the time. And one of the things when we're rewriting history is something along the lines of what we're taught in schools. So we're taught in schools, for example, on the 24th of August at 12 o'clock, AD 79, Vesuvius erupted. Now the narrative is it may have actually erupted 2 months later, and archaeologists are not saying what I'm saying, the 24th of August, AD 79, but I'm yet to be convinced that it's the later date, but maybe I will be convinced. But what I'm trying to get at, that's nothing to do with what we're doing today, is that things in archaeology and our interpretation of the archaeological record, it is always forever changing. But on that issue, it's very important to publish archaeological material. For example, after this tonight, if I get my hands on it, which I've got a huge chunk of Roman brick in front of me, right, which I'm handling now. And that piece of Roman brick was actually found on a footpath in the valleys near Rieder Velin. And it's there. I was handed it from a member of the public, and that member of the public said, "Can you report on this find?" Well, it's been sat there for a year, and that will be a report that I will be writing later on. And again, that will be out in the public domain. So yes, it's something very, very important. When we look at archaeological sites and the information has not been published, it's very frustrating to think that archaeologists are very much high and mighty, and we say we should get this out there and we should publish it. But when archaeologists don't, like me, and other people for reasons that are beyond their control, but if it's in their control, again, like me, we can hope to make a difference with the information that we've excavated over the years. So, right, let's look at this site now. We're a bit more vaguer tonight than we usually are. This was tried and tested last night, and I thought it worked well enough to get people asking questions. And one thing last week was that Peter's with us, so that's good. One thing last week, Peter said, I've never heard of burnt mounds. And lots of what you're describing are not what the archaeologists are saying down here. He said, for example, if we look at that could equally be a kist burial. And it's just sometimes in archaeology, we've got to be more pragmatic with the information in front of us. And of course, listening to people that come along to events like these every week. And sometimes we archaeologists can be very one-centered and not think outside the box. And some of the finest things that I've ever heard have come out of other people's mouths in my lectures. And they've allowed us to move lectures in a different direction, i.e., why don't we find hearths in the Neolithic period? Why don't we find this and that? Why do we just find scatters of flints and so on? It's some locations, because we do find hearths in the Neolithic period, but general. And thinking, well, what if people lived in trees? What if they did this? What if they did that? And we started going in different directions like that. And so this site itself is the Little Burnt Mound, not spelt as in Little the supermarket, but it's the Little Burnt Mound on the land associated with the tomb of the eagle. And you can see there, it says the tomb of the eagle permanently closed. Now, Pat went to the tomb of the eagle site with me, and it was a beautiful museum and nice cups of coffee and tea, Pat, if you remember. And we went around and looked at the archaeology and looked at the site, and we had a little minibus and everything was perfect. But it was operated by a lady who was the daughter of the chap farmer who had actually found the tomb of the eagle, and it's on the South Ronaldsley, which is connected to the mainland. He had actually found this by complete accident, and the archaeological establishment was not happy with this site, and they weren't happy to support this museum at the site. And it's a shame that it's now closed. I'm not exactly sure why it's closed, but the lady who ran it was this was 10 years ago. She was a bit on a limb, really, and didn't have the support, which is a bit of a shame. So sometimes archaeologists don't do ourselves much in the way of favors, and one thing that I'm doing now is just the stuff that I've got, I'm publishing it and giving it to people. Not when I say giving it to people, it's out there. If you want to do anything else with it, then it's fine. Obviously, I get the credit, but it's published, and then you can use it to benefit archaeology and the way forward, really. So, little burnt mound. What is a burnt mound? Let's just describe this again. It's a mound with burnt material in it, and there's a hearth, and there's a vat in the ground like that vat there. It's a lined vat with a stone on the base, 4 stones on the sides with no lid. Now, this would be big enough to bury somebody in, right? Some of these vats in the ground, will you keep that burial thing there for a moment? These vats in the ground, naturally, they were for not burial at all. They're nothing to do with burials, but in some cases they may be. And they are vats in the ground that they place stones in these vats in the ground, and those stones would heat up the water. Now, one of the things that somebody jumped in last night, and I said, archaeologists have described this site at Liddell and other burnt mound sites across Scotland, and do you know what? There's 200 of these in Orkney that have been found so far from the Bronze Age and going into the early Iron Age. They describe these as saunas. So as I'm going through my lecture last night, and as I've been through the lecture time and time again, we've got water in here, and we put stones in the water, and I just keep going and keep talking. Right? Nobody questions one little detail. A sauna is operated by having hot stones in a hole in the ground, and you add water to it, and that creates the misty
Steam.
effect within a sauna, the steam within a sauna.
How do you heat the stones?
That's what we're doing, Anne. That's exactly what we're doing now. Basically, what we're going to do. This was exactly one of the questions halfway through the lecture last night. So remember, last night's lecture ended at 10:30, so we had more time. So obviously, it's good to do Tuesday because I could chuck all the stuff into this one. But that was one of the questions that we had sort of an hour in. How does this whole process work? And that's exactly what we're going to answer now straight away. So the whole process works, if you can imagine, and let's have green. There's the normal topography, right? So hang on a minute. Let's get rid of that there. God, let's get rid of that there, and clear drawings. Hang on. Okay, start again. So there's the normal topography, and what we've got a vat that's created in the ground. Now, interestingly enough, in Ireland, these vats in the ground are actually made of wood. Right? Very interesting point. So the vats in the ground, if you could imagine, there's looking down on it, there's a stone there, there's another stone there, another stone. These are all joined with clay. There's another stone on the base, right? So what's basically happening there is that what we do find. Hang on a minute. What we do find is we find that there's a hearth. Hang on a minute. Hang on. Let's start again. Sorry. There's something. Okay, let's just start that off again. Okay, here we go. So what we've got this thing in the ground, and we've got a little hearth here, right? And basically, plumes of smoke. There's the hearth, and what we've got is that there's, for the sake of argument, we've got water in here. It's full of water, right? And it's within a building. So let's draw in a building. So there's a building here, and there's a little building. right? So we think these were enclosed, right? We do believe they were enclosed, but the one at Sandy is really weird, which we'll look at later. So what you then do is that you put stones in the fire. So when these stones are heated up, you put them in the water, right? So heating up the water, or if it's a sauna, then you're going to have stones in there, and then you're going to add water to it, right? But there's a problem with that. It's the Bronze Age. Did they really have saunas? And that's the question we've got to ask ourselves. So what is this big thing in the morning, in the middle of this building? Are they heating up the water? Now, inevitably, these are created throughout the Bronze Age, but they're being created from 1,628 years BC onwards, right, all the way to 1159 BC, where you've got those two events that temperature drops in the Bronze Age. Then buildings like this would be very good, sort of enclosed kitchens. But why would you have a kitchen in the middle of nowhere on the side of a hill? And then those are all the questions that we ask ourselves. And then what you've got is what you then do, you take out the burnt stones and you put them in a mound, and this mound grows up. Some of these mounds are 2, 3, 4 meters tall, right? So these burnt mounds are used for a long period, for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? And we're only really starting to understand what these burnt mounds are. We know of over 200 on Orkney, 200 on Shetland, and there's thousands of them spread across Britain, including over the beloved landscape of Peter, Devon, and Dorset. Those type of landscapes where you get things that are inevitably marked as kissed monuments, but in fact, some of them are actually burnt mounds. So they're usually in Ireland, they're in lowland areas, and as I've ascertained, thanks to Henry pointing that out. And then what we've got in Wales and England and Scotland and the islands, they're on hillsides, right? And you're thinking they're weird little buildings on hillsides. So let's go back to the images. Thank you for Anne. Thank you for that annoying interruption, but it was actually absolutely at the right time. So we now know what we're doing. That was at the right time, Anne. So what we're going to do there, we're gonna go back again. Let's go back to the images, and we're going to stop the share, and we're going to go back to sharing. And here we go. We're going to back to screen and share. Right. So one of the things that I feel, and the reason why we're going to do more of this site next week, right, is that this is quite a shock to some of your systems, because and I'm hoping when I'm looking at these sites, shut up, Carl. When I'm looking at these sites, I'm actually thinking that all descriptions of what these were for might all be wrong, right? I don't think anyone's come up with a plausible reason for these structures. We know they were used. We know that in these vats, and there's more than one at some sites. The one at Sandy, there's more than one. These vats in the middle, there's no signs that they were ever used to burn inside. Nobody ever burnt anything inside them. There's no scorch marks inside. But around, as evidenced at Sandy, the ground has been heated, right? So in other words, the heat from that thing has heated the earth around, but there's no fire being lit in them, which is a very important point. That would be obvious. It would be heated. What we do find in them now, as I go through this, right, you'll understand the problem with interpretation. And there's thousands of these. For example, we believe that in Britain there's like 5,000 Iron Age banked and ditched enclosure hill forts, right? Well, that's in the Iron Age, right? It's a completely different thing altogether. There's probably tens of thousands of these across Britain. There's so many of them in the Bronze Age, and there's me saying I think people's interpretations of these are wrong. Maybe they're all right, but different burnt mounds have different purposes in different localities, and sometimes. Hang on a minute. 1 second. Hello, I'm teaching. Okay, speak to you later. Bye. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye. Right, okay. So all the interpretations that we get from these is that they are, they're used as saunas. they're used to heat up stones in the water's heated up by the stones to actually heat up fish, and and so on, heat up meat. And one of the things is that we can think that there's other reasons and purposes for these. So this is why we're doing it next week, to sort of give it a little bit more time for your brains to work over the course of the week. So the Little Burnt Mound, South Ronaldsley, the site consists of the remains of a building and a mound that surrounds it on three sides. So interesting, the mound surrounds it. So the mound is the creation of the activity of burning the stones, right? We know there's a hearth that was specifically there to heat up the stones. Though the purpose is controversial naturally. Domestic function, cooking as one, as described with this. Let's not go with the word ceremonial and that type of stuff. Let's just think this more pragmatically. So, and the interesting thing as well is I'm going to chuck something there. You can see that building in the background. That was used by the Africa Corps in North Africa, in Libya, in the Second World War, right? And it ended up on South Ronaldsley, Orkney of all places, right? And it was used as a fines cabin to process the fines on the site excavation. I thought I'd chuck that in. Very strange to have a structure like that. So the Little Burnt Mound is located on Little Farm, and the farmer Ronald Simison had been using the mound as a quarry for road metal until he came across stone structures in 1972. Now, one of the things with this mound, it was probably 3 meters tall, right? The existing mound was 3 meters tall. It's 2 meters. Bits of it are 2 meters today. Now, when you think about a mound it must have been used for an incredible length of time. And what was found in amongst those stones? Not a lot. And that's a clue to its purpose. And when you're finding not a lot of bits of evidence in amongst these stones, you are finding evidence, but not a lot, right? In proportion with the stones, right? Then you can start to dismiss that they're used for kitchens, because kitchens leave a lot of waste. Do you know what? One of the biggest things that archaeologists find is bones, animal bones, right? We don't find many animal bones associated with these. So if you're boiling meat up, right, in the water in the middle, in that vat, right? If you're boiling at joints of meat, where's the evidence? There's little bits of bone that we find in these mounds, but not a lot in comparison with the mounds. So it was found by Ronald Simison, and his daughter was the one who used to run the museum. And I got to be honest with you, it was a really nice, beautiful museum. It really was. Had been using the mound as a quarry for road metalworking, making roads, until he came across stone structures in 1972. So it's very, very likely, as he's removing the stones, it's very, very likely that naturally parts of the site were removed. But parts of the site were removed because the stone mound itself is, in fact, the archaeology as well. Now, one thing I did last night is I said to everybody last night that get hold of a map, and because you're in a different area, Peter, get hold of your local 1 to 25,000 scale map, not 1 to 50,000 scale map, not the reddish ones, but the orangey ones, right? Get hold of a copy, 1 to 25,000 scale, and I bet you a tenner that you will find at least one burnt mound on your map, right? And I will put that bet on with all of you that you will find an Ordnance Survey map and you'll find burnt mounds basically all over them, right? And when I do little exercises with people and I say, right, we're going to do a tally exercise, so we get a map in front of everybody, and I say to everybody, look at the boxes, look in the boxes, each individual box, and tally. So I say, right, I got a tumulus in that box. I got a settlement here. I got a burnt mound here. About 20 burnt mounds by the end of this tally, right? And when you top that up across Britain, there are thousands of them. So in 1972, our Ronald Simerson, a farmer, he did the right thing. He could have just removed it all. He really could have. There was nothing stopping him. He could have removed it all, but he didn't. He alerted a very eminent archaeologist, not Karl-James Langford, but a very eminent archaeologist, Colin Renfrew, who's actually a Lord of Archaeology. He's actually got a peerage for archaeology in the House of Lords. He's the House of Lords archaeologist, right? Lord Colin Renfrew. And Lord Colin Renfrew happened to be working on Orkney at that time and at a nearby excavation at Courtenay. And one of his team, a chap named John Hedges, excavated this site. He investigated the site and the remains of a stone building at the centre of the mound. Now, one person asked me yesterday, which was a very relevant question. Obviously, Orkney's near the sea very much all the time, but how near is this to the sea? And I said it's quite near the sea. Right, okay. What about the one on the island of Sanday that we're going to look at? That was being eroded by the sea, so it's quite near the sea. Even though it was really a mile inland, right, or half a mile inland, it would be very much near the sea. Where the cliff has eroded this, I remember going along the cliff edge with Pat, and it was like you could see out to the sea, right? It was a sheer drop, and over on the left, a little bit over on the left, was this, right? As we walk into the Tomb of the Eagles, and so the building is oval. It's egg shaped, as you can see, with thick walls, in places thinner, but some of the walls were fairly thick. Now, I'm guessing, with the evidence of Sanday, that this would have had a timber roof, right? And having a timber roof would have been okay because there's no fire inside, so there's going to be no fire risk. And that simply means as follows: if it's got a timber roof, there's timber on Orkney in the Bronze Age, and there's a lot of it. Now, I know full well that the material to build my roof, and as you know, it's a circular building, there's a lot of timber in the roof. There's roughly it's quite a strong roof, and it's a turf roof, and there's different layers, membranes on it. But I would say that there's about a ton and a half of timber on the roof at least, right? For a building like this, it's probably equally the same, and therefore that means that there is timber on Orkney at this stage. So when we look at archaeology, sometimes what we've got to do is we've got to discredit the no-sayers and go with the sayers and just think that's how you wouldn't have had a stone roof on here, because it's not the material for a stone roof, and trying to support a stone roof would be very difficult. Corbelliness was quite a big area, so it's obviously a timber roof. At Skara Brae, they discuss having loads of whale bones to create a roof, and I'm thinking that's a lot of whale bones, and whale bones are very heavy, and they would survive in some circumstances. So from these interior walls project into the main room, creating various compartments. You've got, as you look down, right? Hang on a minute. You can see a compartment there. There's little compartments, right? There are little niches, and there are more compartments when you look at the Sanday one. The one on the right there, little compartment. Very interesting. That. Why have they got little compartments? And when you look at these little compartments, right? What are they for? What are they about? And occasionally, what you do find, even though there's no main fire, right? There may have at times had smaller scale hearths in these small alcoves for whatever purposes. And in this case, they found a hearth, remains of a very small hearth in that small alcove, right? For whatever reason, we don't know, but it wasn't the main reason for the purpose of the structure. It was probably much later. Anyway, back to what we're talking about. So in the center of the structure is a large recess, a stone tank lined with flagstones and rendered waterproof by the surrounding clay, right? And you can clearly see that there's water in it today. So bloody hell, that waterproofing. Look at that. There's water in it today. That waterproofing has lasted a very, very long time. Very interesting that we can, and obviously there's little bits of metal going across it today to sort of, they'd usually be a little grid across that to stop animals falling in or whatever. So the capacity of the tank is nearly 1,000 litres, and it was found half filled with stones that were shattered and fired by intense heat. So, right, going back to that, okay, let's read that out. It contained 1,000 litres, completely full. It contained 1,000 litres. And if you want to know that in weight, 1,000 litres is 1 ton of water in there. Right now, I've got what's called IBCs on site. Now we've got an IBC, which is a big square thing, right? It's a big transparent water thing, right? And that IBC can store 1 ton of water, which is 1,000 litres of water, right? So that can hold 1,000 litres of water. Now, when they excavated it, they found it was filled with stones that were shattered and fired by intense heat. So it was filled with stones that had been heated up. You can clearly see that there's no signs of any burning. The stone isn't red, right? And also, let's just do the quick maths on this engineering wise. If you had a fire in that, the stone itself would soon crack, and they wouldn't last long. So, and why would you have a fire so low down? You know, all these different things. And why have you got something like this, right? Which has got the ability to store a lot of water. So the archaeologist John Hedges originally thought that the building represented a house, but he was troubled by the distribution of features. For example, there is no obvious place to sleep in there, so it's not a house. There's no evidence that these places were houses. But as somebody said last night, right? They said they said this is the Bronze Age, right? Now, for example, today I've experienced one of the coldest days I've ever had in West Wales. It's been really cold today. As I said, the ice had frozen within the space of a few hours today, right? And it was very cold. And I'm thinking, right, that's a smaller space, right? And if you've got the ability to heat this up by stones being placed in water, and obviously, you know, then you're going to do that. Or if you look at it a different way, there's another way of looking at this. And can you see it? Can you spot it? Okay, you're filling it with stones, right? You want the heat to radiate off the stones in the center. Was there ever water in these in the first place? And you know what? I've never ever said that ever when I've looked at burnt mounds, and I just suddenly realized now. In these, they find lots of bits of broken stone, obviously the last use, right? Stones, as you guys know, remain hot for a long time, right? And if you keep adding stones to this, and to heat up stones to the temperature you need the stones to be heated up, which is intense heat, they need to be heated up outside on a proper furnace and brought into the building and added to that vat. Right, that's obvious. You cannot, and the other thing as well is, this is another thing. In absence of evidence, folks, in absence of evidence, there must have been a lot of wood on Orkney. And why? You can't really heat up stones on a peat bog fire. Peat only burns at about 200 degrees C, right? If what you need to do is heat those stones up to about 280, 300 degrees C, and you're not going to do it on peat bog fire, right? To get the temperatures needed, as we see the thermal shock created on these stones, there's only one thing that you could use, is a proper fire, fired with wood. And that we get this, and this is the other thing, is this is the exciting reveal, right? If you've got a massive mound around this, which is 2, 3, 4 meters tall, right? You're heating a lot of stones. That means a lot of fuel. Even though it's over 200, 300, 400, 500 years or whatever, right? You're heating up a lot of stones, right? That means over that period of time, there's a lot of timber on Orkney. It's not just being washed up on the coastline. If you've got timber being washed up on the coastline, you've got to dry it out, right? It's not plausible. You've got over 200 of these so far identified on Orkney. There might be 300, there might be 400 of them. 400 of them. Maybe each community has one of these. Maybe a burnt mound. Maybe each burnt mound at a set period of time. There's 50 being used across the islands of Orkney, but that's still quite a lot. Right, out of the hundreds that we've excavated or we know and whatever. Right. So the point is that means that for all of these places to heat up stones, there must have been quite a sizable woodland and forest still standing across the Orkney archipelago, which we have actually discounted when we look at the Neolithic period. We discount the fact that there were lots of trees in the Neolithic period in Orkney, right? We believe that lots of them must have been cut down. They must have been. But then again, who tells us they must have been? When over the past few weeks, we've been looking at, for example, what caused our trees in Britain. Right, this leads us directly to the Amazonian site. If you don't know, it does. Right, the Amazon site itself, the cities and towns and roadways that they find in the Amazon. Now, I know we've done a lecture on some time ago. Right, they have been engulfed by woodland. Right, they have been engulfed by the tropical landscape of the Amazon basin. Right, the trees are everywhere. Right, there's 2 points with this. One is quite dangerous, which we'll do in a moment. Right, but in the northern hemisphere, our trees don't come back. Why don't our trees come back? Why are they not coming back? Is it because of sheep grazing? Is it because of rats? Is it because of mice and all the rest of it? Right, lots of they've got similar animals in the Amazon, right? But their trees come back, right? So the dangerous thing for me to say in this lecture is that you guys know what I feel about global warming and all that stuff, right? You know exactly what I feel about it, and I can't actually spell it out, right? But if we see trees coming back in places like the Amazon, right, and it just comes back anyway, right? Why can't we cut down the trees? Because they're going to come back. That's quite a dangerous thing to say. I absolutely love trees. I'm planting 420 trees next month, right? I love trees, right? But for some reason, we have to plant our trees in this country, right? In places like the Amazon basin, the trees just come back. And why do they come back? One of the bits of archaeological evidence when we look at the Amazon, right, is, for example, the terra preta. Basically, you have natural layer, you have a burnt layer, natural layer, deposited layer, natural layer, floodplain layer, you've got burnt layer, and so on and so on. Terra preta, meters and meters of build-up of soil, right? Because of the process, but that doesn't seem to happen here, right? So in many ways, what we've got to do, we've got to look at Western archaeology, and we've got to look at things from a different perspective, a different point of view. And you'll see that when we look at the Amazon stuff. So the surrounding mound, even today, still rises at 2 meters, and calculations suggest that the overall mound, right, was a massive 200 cubic meters in volume, right? Most of that being stone pebbles that have been collected from the beach, pebbles, not normal flagstones, pebbles. They have to be pebbles, nothing else. So this is the evidence that we're finding. So what is actually in that mound? Come on, Carl, spit it out. It consists primarily of shattered stone, charcoal, and ash. Did I say charcoal? Charcoal comes from burning wood, a lot of wood. So we're wrong about Orkney now. We are completely wrong about the trees being wiped out in the Neolithic period. 100% Wrong. Nipper. So what we're finding occasionally in these burnt mounds, the ones that have been excavated, we're finding the occasional bits of pottery, the occasional pottery lids or stone lids, pot lids, hammer stones. And then we're struggling to find much else evidence. So these items combined with the tank and the hearth suggest that the site was used for cooking. Now, and the little hearth as well, the tiny little one. You know, what is the little hearth doing in that building as well? So there's a little hearth as well. So there's a little sort of tripod pitcher or something on it. You know, a cooking vessel. Right? Maybe that's what it's for. A little. So is it a cooking building? What where are the people bloody living? Right? And we're not finding lots of the people's houses nearby. Some of these are in the middle of nowhere. Now, when they've scratched into the burnt mound a little bit more, they found small bits of evidence of the bones of goat and sheep, but not many at all. Just the odd bits of bone from a goat and a sheep. And you're thinking, okay, did this amount to all the activity? Are they boiling joints of meat? No. That's my answer. Now, what they did...
Are they just making boiling water for a village, a community?
Yeah, but if you've got to go 10 meters away or 20 meters away to the house, it's gonna start to go cold.
Yeah.
But Anne, you're thinking outside the box. And
Yeah.
when hang on a minute, Anne, right, go with that a moment, right? Go with that a little moment, right? I was gonna mention something else a moment, right? Which is about boiling a joint of lamb, right? And you've just actually mentioned something, right? You can actually boil a lot more than just water in here, right? Now, if you boil water and add oil, right, then the oil floats to the surface. You can skim that oil off, you know, and that oil then becomes very valuable to burn in its own right for lanterns, right? You can create tallow, right? You can in this vat, you've got liquids that have been heated up, right? And the point that you made, what they're just boiling water for the sake of it. Well, hang on a minute, right? Keep that there, Anne, a minute, just 1 minute, right? Now, I used to live near the Penrhys estate at the top of the hill, right, in the Rhondda Valley, right? And there was a building there which was built directly on the battlefield site between Iestyn ap Gorgon and King Rhys and the Normans, right? And anyway, long story short, and I didn't know what this building was until Martin, who was one of our members in the valley, explained what this building was. And he said it was a pump house. Okay. In 1966, the Penrhys estate opened. And there was over 1,000 houses built there. There's only 300 left now because they've knocked 700 of them down. And that was a pump house. It pumped hot water to the entire estate. That was the central heating system for 1,000 houses around the Penrhys estate. It was a pumping station, right? So if you live close, if you live down the hill, right, the heating in your house was colder. If you live near the pumping station, it was boiling hot. It pumped water around the whole estate. And why is that relevant? Goff's thinking, what the hell? Why is that relevant? It's very relevant because we do it today. We need hot water today. So hot water is a very valuable commodity. Believe it or not, it very much is, right? And having on tap, not on tap, on bucket hot water, you know, to have hot water available, forget boiling anything, which we're going to do in a moment, but forget that a moment. To have the ability to have constant buckets of water you can wash, you can process hides, you can wash things. If you've got oils, you can tan skins. You know, all these things. You've got access to heat, right? So that's really good. So I think when you're thinking about that, that is quite what you just said, right? We're just heating water but it's more important than that. Actually, having hot water is you know,
Well,
I
that's what I meant, really, because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
really important to have hot water. I
yes,
mean, it's an
yeah,
important
yes,
commodity
yeah,
for
yes. It
you
is an
know.
important commodity, and I'm sorry to cut in there because um um the to go with the flow there, but that's a really good point, massive important point. Sorry to cut in. Somebody's got something they want to say online as well, which I'm going to put in there, right? But I where I am, right? We've got a shower which is heated using a battery and using um uh, propane, and it's a proper, it's a proper shower unit, right? You set it up and it brings out boiling hot water, right? But that's a lot of faff. It really is. You've got to have the water in a massive vat. And then you've got another vat to stand in, and you've got to set the whole thing up. It's a lot of faff, right? And that's with modern day technology. How much hassle would it have been to them back in the day to actually heat up water? I can't be asked. But if you've got water on tap, then that makes a lot of sense. Somebody online saying, Carl, if there was a building around this bath, he's saying, and used fry hot stones, could it be used for preserving dried fish and meat?
Possibly.
I got to be honest with you. I got to be honest with you. That's taking it to another level. And what you've just said is great, but smoking fish. Let's smoke fish.
Yeah.
Let's smoke fish. And to be honest with you, that is even better. Let's smoke fish. Now, okay, I don't have my smoking fish hat on, right? So obviously, but what I do know is this, right? We're gonna actually go to Llantrithid Place in the Vale of Glamorgan, right? And what it was, there's there's a woodland that is south of Llantrithid Place, and it's approximately 1 kilometer away from the house. So you've got to walk over there, right? And the first time we found I don't know how we originally found them, but we found them, right? And when you go into this woodland, there's an ice house,
Oh,
and then there's also
smokehouse.
a smokehouse. There's a smokehouse. There's three of these buildings, right? And they're absolutely amazing. The smokehouse, and they put these smokehouses away from the house, right? Because of the smell and because of the fumes. Now, Anne's contribution was very useful there, but the contribution here as well, drying fish and drying meat,
Yeah.
right? That is massively valuable. So you've got a stock of food through the very, very harsh winter months, which they would have been in the Bronze Age. To be honest with you, if you when we think about Orkney, right, and we think about we've had wind speeds here, which would blow your head off, right? We've actually got a wind turbine here, right, and we've only just managed to put it back together after a year. We had a storm over a year and a half ago, and the wind bent the huge chunky scaffolding pole that this wind turbine was on, right? And those types of winds would be the types of winds that these people would have been exposed to. So having a building like this would be quite a luxury, but there's loads of them. So and also it's mentioned as well. I think we really weren't sure about the drying the meat process. right? But dehydrate, I meant by using hot stones. So you just basically lay the fish onto the hot stones,
Mm.
or you might have the fish hanging over the hot stones, or you might smoke the fish. You might do all sorts of things with them. Not exactly smoke the fish, but you might,
Dry
because
it.
it's, yeah, but it's drying it, yeah, rather than smoking it. Rather, yeah, yeah. I think that's the point. That is the point. You know, this is why now you can understand why we've got to do a two-parter on this. With all these facts and information, we can look at a few more burnt mounds next week, and we can probably understand what the hell we're talking about a bit more. So, oh God,
Sorry for interrupting, but of course I thought, well, why aren't they boiling cauldrons? You know, why aren't they using cauldrons? But of course, it was the Bronze Age. I don't know if they, you know, I don't know what they were making, and not everybody would make metal, so they'd have
well,
to use
actually,
stone.
yeah, actually, to interrupt, yeah, the problem is with a cauldron is they're quite fiddly, right? So
Mm,
obviously, there's a lot of waste of heat with a cauldron, right? So
yeah,
if okay, we got a it's the Bronze Age, so we do have bronze cauldrons in
yeah,
this period. There are bronze cauldrons, right, and copper cauldrons, right. In the Iron Age, we've got iron cauldrons, right. We find lots of them in Wales. The point is, right, there's a lot of heat loss with a cauldron,
mm,
right. There's not a lot of
mm,
heat loss with a stone. A stone's on the fire. You know when you have a you know, when you put a potato and you put it in a bit of aluminium foil and you put it on the fire, the whole thing heats up and you've got a potato, jacket potato within 30, 40 minutes.
yeah,
Much more efficient than an oven. An oven is a very wasteful thing, you know, very wasteful. So these stones are very basically when a stone's heated, you can use it, right? Um, with a cauldron, the heat is not exactly the heat is not all going into the cauldron. Right, it's not all heat. It's going around the side. It's going here. It's going there. Some of it is heating the cauldron. So a very wasteful piece of technology, right? And water's going to take a very long time to heat in a cauldron. Can you remember? Can you remember the legend of Gito Bran? Gito Bran would Clan 10 in the Rhondda Valley. Gito Bran, there's a memorial to Gito Bran. He was a guy. They had this massive cast iron kettle on the fire, and I think he ran up and down the mountain and whatever in a very short period of time. And by the time he got to it basically in 45 minutes, he ran up and down the mountain or whatever in 45 minutes. And the legend is that it took 45 minutes to boil this huge sort of kettle. 45 minutes to boil a kettle, right? How wasteful. When in fact, I reckon if you've got an amount of water in here, and you want to heat the water up, and you've just put them on the fire and you chuck them in the water's going to be heated up instantly.
yeah, yeah.
It's going to be quite brackish, but then again, I tell you what, right? I drink about 10 cups of tea medically. I'm on now decaf, as I said, because I'm not allowed to drink normal tea, but I'm still drinking 10 cups of tea a day, which I shouldn't be, right? And to be honest with you, I can't stand the taste of tea. Yeah, I love drinking it, but when you've had 10 cups of tea a day, right, you start to get sick of it. I can't drink coffee, right? I medically can't drink coffee either, but the point is the taste is quite the same. If I had tea made with brackish water, I'm sure it would taste a lot better, right? So I think the brackish water, but they're not making tea, are they? But what are they
No,
using the water for, and
no.
what are they using the stones for? And I think this thing back to what I said earlier on, back
Yeah,
to that experimental thing at the earlier on, they're thinking of these, and the stones are just being used, right? Do you know what, Anne, right? In a live evening, a topic like this would be absolutely brilliant, you know, with massive images in the background, you know. Uh, Something like this would really work as well.
mm,
So anyway, when what they did on Orkney, they experimented with a thing like this, and a stone tank. And they basically cooked a leg of lamb, right? And it worked. But then again, there's not much evidence of animal bones, only a few bits of animal bones amongst the 200 was it cubic meters of material left there, right? And those animal, and the other thing as well is, right, somebody asked me the obvious question last night, and I couldn't answer it. If the animal bones had been placed in here, now archaeology can tell us if the bones have been boiled or not, right? I haven't seen those papers, that information, right? So dating of materials excavated from the mound indicate that this is in the latter part of the Bronze Age, approximately 1,200 years BC, 3,200 years ago, and it heads into the Iron Age, about 500 years BC, which would probably be the end of the Bronze Age on Orkney. But then thereabouts by 2,500 years ago, all of these burnt mounds would have been abandoned across the landscape. So again, when we're thinking about this alternative interpretations, so 200 mounds on Orkney, a similar number on Shetland, throughout the British Isles. Now, some archaeologists have experimented with understanding these. One archaeologist, a certain O'Kelly, basically said, well, what if you think about burnt mounds as representing a people that moved around? And I'm thinking that's really not the Bronze Age anymore. But think about it. Maybe these were places that were dotted around everywhere that people could go into for shelter and maybe cook joints of meat. But then again, that's not really possible, because if you've got a massive mound around these things, these were used for hundreds and hundreds of years. People just didn't bugger off and just leave these things. They used them for a very, very long period of time. So again, when we think about this little site, and you think about a number on South Ronaldsley, and when if any of you have been to Orkney, and I know Pat has never been to Orkney in her life with me, have you, Pat? But yes, she has. So if we go to South Ronaldsley, it would have been a sort of island in its own right. And you're thinking of people moving around using these temporarily, and you're thinking, well, you can't really do that because it's an island and it's not exactly a big island, you know. So you can really dismiss something like that altogether, because if you're going through the effort of building something like this, you're not going to let every Tom, Willie, Nilly, and Harry use them. And remember, the population of Britain is still relatively low there. It had peaked to 1.5 million. It was on a bit of a decline, up to about about 3,000 years ago, 1,000 years BC. So people have some archaeologists have argued, and this is a bit of a cop out, it was obviously for boiling joints of meat. And the reason why we don't find bones in these mounds is because the charcoal and basically the sesqui oxides coming off the stone, if it's a limestone or whatever, in this case it's not, that would create some reactions with the calcium in the bone and eat away at the bones. So therefore that means that the mounds would be acidic, and that's why we don't find any bones in them. But other burnt mounds, they're not acidic. So how do you explain there's no bones in those? So in other words, we get burnt mounds that there's a pH level is quite high. We get burnt mounds that pH level is quite low. The same result. There's very few to no bones apparent in any of these mounds, whatever way you look at it. So you can't go with the fact, oh, there's not many bones because they've been eaten away by acid. Well, no, that's not the case, because in other ones where the soil's not acidic, there's no bones either. So, and there's thousands of these. So it has also been suggested, again, that, you know, saunas. But think about it. You came very close earlier on. Think about salt preparation, right? Think about leather preparation. But then again, salt panning is quite an easier process. Salt panning is quite easy, or brine panning to create salt. Basically, I don't know if you ever saw that series Britannia. It was a few years ago. It was about the Iron Age and the Roman era. I never saw it, and I was going to be an advisor on that series when they were filming down in Monknash. They'd built up sort of buildings and stuff there to do the filming. and they built these weird little things that they said were salt pans, right? Basically, if you can get a flat area on a rock, right, with a little bit of a lip at one end, slightly on a slightly on a slope, right?
Yeah.
You put some salt water in there. You let the sun evaporate the water, and you get a skim of salt. Scrape that out. You put more salt water in there, skim of salt, scrape that out, and after a while, you're going to get you're going to get salt. So in other words, what you don't need to go through all this hassle to create salt. It's quite easy to do. It really is. Think about leather preparation. We've sort of mentioned that. So what we are going to do now is that I'm probably feeling I need a break. But before we do the break, we're gonna which one can I afford to get excited about? Well, I can get excited about the Amazon. Or the mosaic one, but we'll just finish these images. So we will be coming back to this next week a little bit, so we know what it is, little, and we'll look a little bit more of a plan and see how this operates a little bit more better. And again, it's a really interesting site, and it's a shame that the site is now closed, which is very, very unfortunate. That's what we're going to do after the break anyway. But I'm thinking what I did do yesterday. I did my Google thing yesterday. That's why I didn't cut any images off. I went to Google and I basically said, right, how do you find this information? So if you type in here quickly, it comes up quite quickly actually. So if you type in Amazon and you type in city, it comes up straight away. Huge ancient city found. It comes up straight away. Now, to be honest with you, this is quite a fortuitous thing because we've sort of been talking about trees and all these other things. And so huge ancient lost city found in the Amazon. And these mounds, they're starting to find these mounds everywhere, right, on the Terra Preta. And as you can see, it's in the middle of tropical rainforest there. And this is they're finding these things as well. It's not very thick tropical rainforest, so I believe what's happened there, and you can see what's happened. The trees have been cleared, and now the trees are growing up again, right? So that's what you can clearly see what's happening there. And they're excavating this, and scientists have found 6,000 mounds in Ecuador, thought to be the basis for ancient homes. Now, a huge ancient city has been found in the Amazon, hidden for thousands of years by lush vegetation. I'm going to correct that. It's not a city. It's individual buildings over a large area that have been constructed over a long period of time. Abandoned trees come back over there. They're living and so on. But what can I just remind you of a little story that I've told quite a lot, right? One of my tape recorded anecdotal stories. Let's get the tape recorder. Bang, press the tape recorder. The story is about a chap, an anthropologist. He goes into the tropical rainforests of Brazil, not Ecuador. And he's heard about this village of people, and the guy in charge of the village, we'll call him the Muncta. The word Muncta is a Greek word basically referring to the head of the village, which they still use today, the Muncta. But this is in Brazil, same difference. So he went to find the Muncta with his little village, with his family, right? And it was abandoned. And what he found around him, there was empty buildings, and there was a fire almost as if it had gone out. And he looked around. There was honeybees in the tree, right, and there was honey dripping from the tree, and there was a crop of maize planted over there, and it was still growing, and he could see that there were fish bones lying around, and there were broken bowls and stuff. And he immediately thought that the people in the village had been killed, right? So he was a bit disconcerted by this, and the next minute he was sat there in the village, the abandoned village, and this person approached him, and they basically said, follow me. Obviously, he wasn't speaking English. Follow me, follow me. So he followed this individual a bit further into the tropical rainforest, right? And there was this new village. They were building a new village, a new hall and little individual houses, and it was new. It was virgin tropical rainforest. Well, when I say virgin, somebody had probably lived there 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago, but there was nothing there now. It was a new spot. So he went to the monk there and he said, what's happened? What's happened? And the monk there said, nothing. Yeah, but why are you here? You were in the Garden of Eden. You had food, you had buildings, you had honey, you had water, you had all your resources. And the monk of the village said, we just left it. And the anthropologist said, I don't understand why you've just left it. But we've just left it. A few years later, he found out the reason why they do that is because people in America are different from us. They know when they're onto a good thing. And when they're onto a good thing, they just up and leave, right? It's a bit like God knows what I'm talking about. You find a really good woman, the best woman ever, and then you say, I'm leaving you now, right? Because you can't get any better than that, right? And this is their mentality. Right, and this is what we see with civilizations like the Olmecs, Zapotecs, Toltecs, Central America. We see that with the Maya, and that would have happened with the Aztecs as well. It was likely that if the conquistadors didn't meet up with Montezuma of the Aztecs in 1521, Mexico City, if they didn't meet up with him then, the Aztec civilization was teetering on the edge of collapse. So what would have happened is that the Aztecs would have just gone out there and formed another civilization somewhere else, whilst abandoning where Mexico City is today. They would just abandon it, right? So this is their thinking. This is why people in the Americas survive. This is why when we look at the mound builders of Idaho and so on, and when we look at the mound builders further up in the northern states to do with the border of Canada, when we think about those mound builders, and obviously further south in the Mississippi, we see these big mounds in the middle of nowhere, and they're just there, right? And we're thinking, this must have been a great civilization at one time, but something happened and the civilization collapsed and they did something else. Civilization did not collapse. They just decided to do something else and go somewhere else. This is why when we think about the North Americas and the South Americas, there was tens of millions of people living in the Americas before Westerners got there, and we added our diseases and we wiped out and we raped millions of people in North and South America, right? We took everything that they had, right? We brought our civilization onto these people, and it didn't work. We started cutting down their trees. It didn't work. We started looting their burial grounds in North America. It didn't work because they got a different way of doing things, right? It's all to do with a fine balance between Mother Nature. So looking at this again, going back to the story, so the discovery changes what we know about the history of people living in the Amazon. The houses and plazas in the Apano area in eastern Ecuador were connected by an astounding network of roads and canals. Great, love it. The area lies in the shadow of a volcano, and it then says that created rich local soils, but also may have led to the destruction of the society. Absolute poppycock, that line. And basically, when people are writing these things, they're really not understanding what they're talking about, because the shadow of the volcano, that would have added a richness to the soil, right? And people would have just gone off and created new civilizations. That's what they did. It was a benefit, and would have had richer soils. That's poppycock there. So when we think about South America, we think about the Inca people, and we think about nomadically living and tiny settlements. Describe what a tiny settlement is. These 6,000 houses and roads and canal networks, that was used over an incredible length of time. So some of the buildings were being used, that building abandoned over there, a building being used over there, and that's going on. So the problem in archaeology, what we do, we put everything together in one box, and we think everything happened at the same time. For example, the Roman period, the Roman era in Britain, it all happened in one day. Rome was built in a day, and that's the way we look at it. poppycock, because what we see in Roman archaeology, buildings fall down, they're rebuilt. Buildings are built, they're abandoned. Something else is built over there, right? This is what happens, and this is how we look at it. It changes the way we see Amazonian cultures. Most people picture small groups, probably naked, living in huts and clearing land. This shows ancient people lived in complicated urban societies. I'm sorry to say that that's wrong as well. People live in complicated semi-urban societies today, and very much to do with that case with the anthropologist I mentioned earlier on. We can't put Western ideas onto these people, but we're not going to disagree with this sentiment that they did use large landscapes for civilization. But they just moved on somewhere else. Wherever they built something and things got over whatever, they went something else. This is typical South and Central American civilization. So we're talking about 2,500 years ago, maybe more, maybe less. People living within this landscape. It says for 1,000 years they're still living there today. These are the Eldorados. There's Eldorados all over South America. There's cities of gold all over South America. Here we go. And the other thing, it is difficult to accurately estimate how many people live there at any one time, but scientists say it is certainly in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands. Let's look at across the expansive landscape, millions of people living. Those are the modern day estimates today. So the archaeologists combine, so obviously they're referring to the hundreds of thousands of people living in sort of small urbanized areas over a long period of time. So the archaeologists combined ground excavations with a survey of 300 square kilometers, and that imagery is going through dense plants and trees. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a small area of Ecuador, and we're talking about these red areas are indicating the large areas that we've got centers of population. Living over this period of 1,000 years, moving about, and sort of the roads, networks, and canals would have been perfect for these people's lives and how they did things. I think this is absolutely fascinating. And again, we did this in a lecture when we were in the pandemic. Obviously, either side, you've got these little mounds going up either side. Whether they were all used at the same time is naturally what I'm saying is up for debate. So, you know, this is a great network of connection. These people knew how to use their landscape and to use it rightly and not wrongly, as we do in the West. So again, these things are sophisticated. You know, you've got the idea of the right angle, you've got these mounds, you've got the idea of the roads, the landscape. The Romans didn't get to this South American landscape to build these roads. They built their roads straight, because obviously from getting to A to B, that's the way to do it. So all this landscape is very powerful, with the causeways and ditches built over a very, very long period of time. 25 years of research was saying. Imagine that you discovered another civilization like the Maya, but with completely different architecture, land use, and ceramics. So this is what we're saying, a massive landscape. Not a huge amount is known about the people who lived there and what their societies were like. But I think we can get that from the existing societies around pits and hearths, jars. You know, when this is the thing, right? This is the point. Yeah, I'm reading this to you, and you're reading other things on the screen, right? When archaeologists see things in the ground, right? For example, they see jars in the ground, and they see burnt seeds and all the rest of it. Archaeologists almost immediately presume that the site has been abandoned. What about if they just went elsewhere? There you go. With the mindset that we've always seen with the Americas. So Professor Rustin says he was warned against this research at the start of his career because scientists believed that no ancient groups had lived in the Amazon, which we now know is completely wrong. They have lived there, and they continue to live in maybe much smaller communities today, but their ancestors are still with us today. A stubborn archaeologist finding what he needs to do within the realm of archaeology, which doesn't sound unlike me. So what we're going to do, we are going to take a break. So if everyone keeps to one single question, so we're going to have a break. One single question each. Right, Goff.
No questions.
Right, Peter.
No, nothing to add. That was yeah, really interesting in this Amazon stuff. So I did have something I was going to say about burnt mounds, but it's passed me by now. So
Okay then. Well, as you two haven't
I'll
asked
try and remember
questions-
it for the end.
Okay. Right, Del. Anything you want to say?
No, that's fine. Thanks, Carl.
Right, I was going to say that as none of you have asked any questions, that's building up for somebody to ask 3 questions. Right, Pat,
Bet it's
you
Anne.
can ask. No, Anne, you can ask 4 questions. Not Anne, Pat, you can ask 4 questions if you like.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Anne's on to 5. Anne, you can ask 5 questions.
No, it's all right. I
Oh, that's
mean,
all right then.
I'm
Okay,
just
then.
I'm just gonna see that tub, that bat, as a facility that was used by a community, and we don't
For
know
diff-
why, what for, but it was obviously connected to heating
and,
water.
and for different things over a period of time.
Yeah,
Maybe it had no use
yeah.
connection, and different people may have used it for different things. Right. Okay. Thanks for that. So who have we got left now, Richard?
Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. And the other
There we go.
person there
I'm
is
on
going to be
now.
Henry. Nothing, Richard? No.
Only that with the vat, sunk into the ground. It seemed a little bit too big
It is extra. It is extremely
for
big.
cooking
It is.
food and that. It's
Yeah.
obviously going to take a hell of a long time to, even if you're chucking hot rocks in. And I say, if you're going to use it you wouldn't use it as a sauna, because you're better off just getting hot rocks and chucking water on them, getting the steam off them that way. So I think that one goes out the window to me.
So we're if again back to the water thing, if you're heating up water over a long period of time and you just keep adding after you've it's going to take a long time to heat it up anyway. It's going to take a long time. Yeah.
It's a big area, just when you're heating up meat or
Yes, it is. It is. But obviously it's not going to be
Alright.
completely full of water, but even 100 liters of water is going to take quite a bit to heat up, you know. Anyway, thanks for that, Richard. Thanks for that. And Henry, because I want my break. Henry, anything you want to say?
I just left you a few comments in the chat box, which were about.
Okay.
Okay, we're just gonna go. Some used for metalworking. That is a really nice one. If you've got a vat of cold water, right, and so obviously some used for metalworking. Obviously, metalworking would leave detectable evidence, but it doesn't mean to say that some of them weren't used for metalworking at some periods in time. So obviously, heating up, you've just taken a sword or something out of a fire and you want to heat it. You want to you want to hone an axe and you want to heat its edge again. Yeah, so working it. Yeah, that could be one thing. Metal working. Just a thought, beer. Oh yes, we're loving it. We're loving it. Yes. And obviously, then we're going on to South America. They found in South America, they have found large jugs containing maize beer called Chihica. And you are right. I know about that one. But obviously, if we think about these vats for making beer, hops, job done. Hops were around. But anyway, so what we're going to do, I want a quick break. You guys can just have a chat or whatever. I'm just gonna get one of my things, and we'll be back in about 2 or 3 minutes. So 3 minutes, Anne, no more. Who's just left us? Oh, Dal's left us. All right.
Hmm. How long does it take to boil a kettle? Hmm.
If it was keto bran, it would take 45 minutes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right,
Well,
so we
I boiled enough to make a little cup.
you know one of the most annoying things, right, is when people fill a kettle up to full, right, and it takes 5 minutes to boil, and they only want one cup of tea. What a waste!
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've got. That's what they teach you now, not to fill your kettle up. That's what they spend all your money on, sending you little notes saying how to economize. Don't fill your kettle up. Actually, I'll make a flask next Wednesday
That's a good idea.
for the morning and the evening. Oh, I'm really sorry. It's so cold, isn't it, for you? You want to get a big bath and put heated stones in it.
That's not actually a bad idea. No, we've got no, actually, that's not a bad idea because we've got a oh bloody hell, that's not a bad idea. Because we've got a new wood burner.
Oh, yeah.
Because the wood burner I got behind me is not very good. So
Mm.
we've got a wood burner, and that's the point. If you heated up pebbles on a wood burner,
Mm.
right,
Mm.
and you had a tin
It might
bath.
explode. You'd be fine.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Look, I don't. Yeah, I think we'll move away from this idea. Right, okay. So what we're going to do now? Dell had to leave us because Richard upset him. Because Richard said something about Dell being small. And so he's left the lecture now. He's coming back next week. So Dell is small. I got to be honest with you. So I can imagine. So was Glenda slagging me off then?
Oh, yeah, she'd be slacking you off. Oh, no, she wasn't. She just said, um, we'll just we won't talk about archaeology, we'll just talk about Carl. And I
Is
said,
that what she said?
yeah, much more exciting, she said. And I said, no, I said, I don't think so. No, I did. I said, yeah.
Oh God, you're a woman of many talents. So now what we've done, we've done the huge ancient lost city found in the Amazon. We've done that now. So what I want us to do, I want us to go back on Google, right? And what it's not as easy to find because there's last year's discovery. So we're going to go directly back onto Google, right? And so there we go, screen share. So if we type in there, I wonder if we're going to get it straight away. Roman mosaic. If it comes up, Roman mosaic. So we go type in Chedworth. Is it still going to come up? So is it Chedworth? Chedworth. So there it is. Job done. So hopefully we will get this now. It's not that one there, Britain's first most. I hate it when they use 5th century. It's 400s. Thank you very much. It's not that one because that was last December. This is now the 6 days ago. So if we click on there, so if you're researching this, they've updated it. So a year on. So archaeological tests confirm mosaic from the 400s at Chedworth, right? And this is the 11th of January. Now, for me, that's just a bog standard Roman mosaic, probably Roman mosaic from about the 300s, from the mosaic building stage at lots of Roman villas across Britain. That fits nicely. But they've now found out it's not from the 300s, it's from the 400s, and there's a date that goes way into the 400s, middle of the 400s that I've seen. So new tests have confirmed the discovery which challenges the understanding of life in Britain after the Roman Empire. What they used to say was this: in 410, the Roman military was withdrawn from Britain. Sometime in the 420s, it's referred to as the groans of the Britons. But challenged by that quite nicely is the Roman military did not leave Britain in the way that they've said. Right? They also say about Magnus Maximus in the 380s, going from Britain over to the continent to claim to be emperor in 407. There's another individual called Constantine III. He goes over, removing the garrisons in Britain. But against that narrative, on Hadrian's Wall, what we've got is the AD 430s. Start again. Yeah, the AD 430s. What we're finding is that there are garrisons still living on Hadrian's Wall. Now, if the Roman military's been withdrawn from Britain, why are there still Roman garrisons on Hadrian's Wall? And that's up in the north. That's 20 years after this date. So having a mosaic at Chedworth, right, which is near Cheltenham, having a mosaic at Chedworth, which is dated to the 400s, it makes common sense, right? Roman civilization in Britain collapsed at the day that Roman civilization collapsed in Rome itself. So with the large Roman emperor in 476, when he was deposed in 476, that was the end of the Roman Empire in the West completely. The Roman Empire continued in the East until 1453, right? Constantinople. It lasted for another 1,000 years, right, in the East. But in the West, it collapsed in 476. That's where it collapsed everywhere. And I believe the people who aspired to be Roman, who wanted to be Roman in Britain, still held to that belief until very, very late. So it's saying, following the economic collapse of the 360s, the Great Conspiracy, and later onwards, it was widely believed that towns and villas were largely abandoned, except Carlisle still had an operational water system in the late 400s. So, and that's up in the north as well. Chedworth isn't; it's further in the south, but as we know, so it was believed that Chedworth had been abandoned, but that's untrue. They've got this new mosaic into the 400s, right? So what they've done at Chedworth, they've restored the walls by putting like this sort of roofy type thing on there, but which protects the walls. And in between here are the mosaics, right? So alongside radiocarbon dates and pottery found on the site, archaeologists confirmed the findings using optical stimulated luminescence, OSL, to test when the soil particles beneath the tiles were last exposed to sunlight. So what we're finding there is that when the artifacts, when the evidence, when the layers are removed above certain sediments, what they do is they extract the certain sediments, and those certain sediments have got a certain charge which had been charged up from 1,600 years ago or whatever, right? And then you record how the charge is depleted over a period of time, which is called OSL. So in other words, when something was last exposed to sunlight, right, you record the charge and how it's deteriorated. And there's another way of looking at it as well. So what they're doing, we're now continuing our research. Evidence is now being gathered from other West Country villa archives to track down additional dating evidence. And for my master's dissertation, I actually looked at a villa which was not dissimilar to this. So maybe I could look into my notes and find out a little bit more about that. So this will put our Chedworth dates into the 400s in context, so we can fully understand what life would have been like during this period, not only at Chedworth, but within the community of villas and towns that surround it. So this is groundbreaking. This is absolutely amazing news as they were excavating it last year. So the archaeologists working at Chedworth, obviously, this is you can find the episode from Digging for Britain, aired on iPlayer. Another thing aired on iPlayer, but obviously we're talking about the reveal of this being last year, and obviously going all the way back to the year 2020. Oh God, I tell you what, right? This is rather knackering tonight. So I'm going to do what I did with the mold cape last night. What I did last night, I basically said, look, we're gonna look for a little bit of time on the mold cape, and we're gonna look at the site at Sanday, right? And then we're going to call it a day. Now, I warned everybody last night, if we're going to be doing burnt mounds next week, we're going to be doing burnt mounds next week. Do we do the mold cape as well? Do we do a full thing on the mold cape? I don't know. It depends how it happens. So I'm going to look at the mold cape briefly now. There's our Chedworth. And let's go to the images. And there's the mold cape. Now, what I'm going to say to you all, last night there was 8 of us last night. There was a couple away. Like there's I think there's one of you away tonight, isn't there, or whatever. Last night, I think one person said they knew about the mold cape and the rest didn't. And this is one of the finest pieces of gold artifacts ever found in Britain. And few people know about it, and it deserves a little bit more time than I'm giving it tonight. And this was planned. This was all planned. We're only going to be looking at this briefly. Now I'm gonna ask the question, right? And those that know about the mold cape say, and the rest stay quiet. How many of you know about the mold cape?
Yes,
Yeah.
More of you than Tuesday. So yeah, that's quite a few. But most people last night didn't, and it's a Bronze Age artifact in the British Museum. Now, I made a comment last night, and it was picked up by somebody on YouTube, and I basically said this needs to be kept in the British Museum. And the reason why it needs to be kept in the British Museum, we do not have a museum secure enough, other than the National Museum of Wales in Cardiff, to store this artifact and put it on display. And unfortunately, the National Museum of Wales, their archaeological department has now moved to St Fagans, so we don't have the security to keep this. This should be kept at the British Museum, and for everybody on the planet to see. So anyone in mold can argue that it should go back to mold, but it wouldn't be secure enough. A gold artifact on display in a museum in mold without the security, I'm sorry, it wouldn't go. But that controversial thing said, and this artifact is of great archaeological interest from the Bronze Age. So the mold gold cape is believed to have been produced from one gold nugget. It'd be quite a sizable gold nugget, but you do get them about, obviously, sheet gold from Wales, and dating roughly from around 4,000 years ago to that date that we took, around the 1,600 years BC, so 3,600 years ago. That's when it dates from. It was, again, more detail next week. It's found in mold, or near mold, from a mound known as Bryn i'r Ellion in 1833. Now, Bryn i'r Ellion basically means Goblin's Hill. Now, when I'll give you a little bit of information, sorry about that. The cape is thought to have formed part of a ceremonial dress. And when we think about ceremonial, You can't really move your arms. It was believed may have been used by a woman or may have been used by a small man like me. Um, we don't really know its function, but it was lined with copper. That's really interesting. There was a copper lining, right? And maybe more. There's talk in my other notes, and we're not doing that now. That there may have been another one there as well. Now, the gold cape was found in 1833 by workmen. Accounts of the exact circumstances vary, either during the filling of a gravel pit. So basically, they're seeing something sticking out of a pit in the ground or whatever, or while they were quarrying for stone. But there was a mound, right? The story is that this mound, Bryn Ellellion, there was a mound there in Flint, and they believe that they deliberately dug into the mound to see if there's any goblin's treasure. And there was treasure in there, this gold cape. So, however, it was found by the workmen. And the problem is, what the workmen did was they divided the gold amongst themselves, and it was all going to be melted down, and bits of the gold went missing anyway. But the gold cape had been placed on the body of a person who was interred in a rough kist in a typical Bronze Age mound. Now, when we think about that, we're thinking about the words of rough kist. It wasn't an impressive, massively important kist, and you're thinking, well, if this is a mundane burial, right? What would have big burials been like at that time? Obviously, all been looted and obviously been destroyed by lots of the barrow diggers since. But nothing like this has really ever been found. This was found in 1833. So the preserved remains of the skeleton were fragmentary and badly crushed. That could have been done by the workman. We don't know. An estimated 300 amber beads in rows had originally been described associated with the cape, but only one of those beads has survived today. So it makes you wonder if 299 amber beads have just disappeared, right? What about more of the gold from the site disappearing? Do you know, for example, the law is so tight now involving anyone finding gold or anything like that. If there's a slight sniff that you've taken something from an archaeological site today, which is gold or silver or classed as treasure trove, there's almost an instant prison sentence. But this wasn't available then, right? So, also associated with the cape were the remains, I said copper, but it's a sheet bronze sort of backing, right? A sheet bronze backing for the gold. In places, the gold was attached to the bronze sheeting with bronze rivets. Among the artifacts found there also were 2 gold straps, an urn, statue of Lloyd George, and also quantities of burnt bone ash were also found with the grave. Now, this is very, very unique. This is a massively important object. And we'll talk about sizes, we'll talk about dimensions and sexuality of the person that this is associated with next week, which is quite a lot of information. And even looking at the motive, even looking at the motives and so on. But quickly saying that this challenges this basically challenges the narrative in the Bronze Age, and it goes with the narrative as well, that it challenges a narrative that there are big objects like this out there that are being used and people are using in gold. It also goes along with the narrative that gold is being used more and more in the Bronze Age. So the other thing as well is the style. This was Adam last night. He said I've seen it. Okay, Adam, this does not look like indigenous influence. It looks more like continental influence, and in fact that's exactly what my notes say, sort of an indigenous and continental influence in that design. It's sort of typically out of the British ideal of metalworking, and some people say it's sort of more European. Some people can go towards African for the influence, but this sort of design can be seen on sort of Bronze Age artifacts across Britain. So more about this next week. So finally, what we're going to do now is we're going to and there it's from the back. Anne, that looks like you're married from the back. It does. So what we're going to do, we're gonna look at this site just briefly. Pat wasn't with me on the third trip to Orkney, where we actually went to the island of Sanday, which is a bit of a shame. Pat, you would have liked that. Yeah, it was a very, very weird trip. The third trip to Orkney. I was sat in front of the vehicle with Bill. Right, we had a little minibus. And he didn't talk at all as we're driving along. He was just totally focused on the road. It was a really weird journey, but we eventually got to this site, and we saw this site on Sunday, and truly an amazing site. And what this is that's what the structure looks like. And we won't go there. That's what the structure looks like. And look at that. It would have had quite a big roof. A roofing over that, you would have definitely needed timber. You would have had to have had timber, and actually, you would have had a turf roof on top of the timber as well. You'd have had been wattled together. On top of that, you would have had skins to make it waterproof. That all knitted and stitched together and tarred, right? And then what you'd have done, you'd have had sods on the roof, and probably maybe a slight cambered roof, but more or less flat, rather than an apex roof, right? Because an apex roof just wouldn't work. I know an apex roof just don't work in these windy conditions, and windy conditions there as they are now. That's why we basically got flat roofs here. So we've got to think about when it was originally excavated. I'll give you a little bit of information. We're not going to go on too much longer tonight because we are going to finish around just after past. An emergency excavation was carried out in February 2005 on the island of Sanday, which obviously we'll show you that location next week, and we'll give you a little bit more information, a few more plans and stuff. It was first thought to be a burial monument, right? But there were no bones there. Right, it was found due to erosion on the coast. So what they did, they lifted the whole thing up and rebuilt it. Now that's very interesting. There, that is where there is a compartment that they believe is a water system. There's evidence that was a water system, and that's the large vat there. So as we sort of go there, and we see the reconstruction. So what we've got, the excavation revealed the site to be a burnt mound. So the whole thing was surrounded by this burnt mound. In fact, to build up the bank around this, they used the stones for the burnt mound, with surviving structural components, including a central tank. There it is, with a space defined. So basically what you've got these orthostats, which are upright stones on end, to sort of divide bits of the area, right? Divide this compartmentalized. They may look like beds, but they're not. They're not big enough to be beds. And there's different things going on here. It's arranged very differently than a building that you would have lived in. These sort of back things and all the rest of it. So when we think about an industrial process, I would say that if we think about industrial process, I would say that this may have been used for everything. So if we want to chuck in the ideas for these things, we want to chuck in about smoking fish. We want to think about heating up water, right? That's a good one. We want to think about sort of maybe for tanning processes. Maybe we'll want to think about, for example, kneeling swords, for example. All different processes could have been used. This could have been the industrial building for the community, right? Everything was done here, and it was kept alive 24/7. That's why we've got so many stones. So the water system, water is going to be important for everything, and there's an outflow drain as well. That is an outflow drain going out there, going across the screen. There's an outflow drain there as well. So in other words, they had drainage in these things. And basically, the mound itself is made of these burnt stones, right? And if you look in the picture, you can see little bits of stone which are poking out, which are darkened because they've been burnt. Right, so this is the burnt mound on Sanday. So more about this next week. I just wanted to bring this to you So introduction to burnt mounds and obviously the mold cape this week. Whether I'm going to be able to complete all next week, I do not know. But what we are going to do now, it's 9:30. And we don't want to upset Pat, who says, I've joined these classes on a Wednesday because I want it to finish at 9:30. And that's exactly what we're going to do, Pat. We're not going to let you down. So actually, that was nice and concise. So that's the way we need to be. Right. So, okay, then let's start off with Dickie.
Richard.
Yeah.
You
Only going
can't-
back to that mold cape.
Mm.
Go on.
It did come out. I was on loan a few years ago
Yes.
in North Wales. So.
Yeah, it did go. Actually, there's a reconstruction at the Mold Museum. You know, it's actually quite a good reconstruction. And I think it did go on loan to the Mold Museum. But you can imagine what the security would have been like for that, Richard.
Oh yeah.
There would have been at least 2 thugs from the valleys guarding it.
They don't have that. They don't have sex in mold, do they?
They don't have what? Sex? What?
Sex.
Did you say they don't have sex in mold? What?
Bugs.
Oh, yeah, they do. I had an experience in a toilet in mold, right? Basically, what happened? I went to wash my hands in a toilet in mold, and I was washing my hands, and I heard all this money jangling in a cubicle behind me, right? And the next thing I heard, this guy burst out of the cubicle with a load of money in his hand, right? And there was a charity sort of container. He'd robbed a charity container. So there's a police station opposite, right? So I went to the police station opposite and I rang the bell and it said, oh, there's nobody here. And I said, what's the problem? And I said, somebody's just robbed a charity container from just leave it there and we'll send somebody out to collect it. They weren't really interested. Anyway, that's my next story from Mold. Right, Peter, anything you'd like to say?
No, that was great. Thanks, Carl.
My pleasure. And you've got a lot of work on your plate, Peter, finding these things, looking at a map. Exactly. Right. What about you, Pat?
Oh, nothing. Fine. Thank you.
Good. What about you, Anne?
Yeah, no, it's been a merry-go-round of archaeology tonight. Really exciting.
Good. Anne, are you looking forward to my live evenings? We're going to be printing one of the backdrops in the next few days as well, so that's good.
Oh, in Chepstow.
Chepstow, yeah. We're gonna be doing one at Ystwyth Gunlice as well. So if that's closer, that's closer. Right. So
drive to Ystwyth Gunlice.
Yeah, it's rough up there.
That's really back of the arms.
So we've done Pat. We've done Pat, haven't we? Yeah, we have. Yeah. Anything from you, Goff?
No, it's very interesting. Lots of interesting subjects. Thanks very much.
And then finally, what we've got before we go on to Henry, Dell left us. He said, "Need to leave now. Anne upset me. Thanks. See you next week. Kiss." Henry says, Dr. Needham says the gold is from Ireland. So should it go back to Ireland? Just an idea. Stop stirring it. We don't like you stirring that. No, we don't want you stirring it.
They've done scientific analysis on the gold, and it looks as though it does come from Ireland.
Right. Yeah.
It's difficult to even go there with that, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Right. Anything else, Henry?
I think, definitely Dublin Museum is the best place.
Yeah, you're getting too controversial now. Too controversial.
No, that's
right. So,
thank you.
Okay, and I got that email. I'll read the email that you sent me earlier on. And basically, one thing that I will be writing up about tonight is this tile, right, which is that thickness, right? And this was found on a footpath. It got the right dimensions to be Roman, and this is something that I got to write up. So so this is a thing that I've got to write up about tonight.
Okay.
So
Good luck.
So anyway, so what we're going to do, if nobody else has got anything else to say, I'm going to thank you for joining us tonight. We will see you next week on Wednesday. Look forward to it. Any news, get over to me. You've got your homework now, looking at maps and stuff, and keep those bits of news articles in tonight. So that's been a real great contribution. So what we're going to do, we're going to say good night now. Good night, God. Good night,
everybody.
Good
Henry,
night.
Lisa,
Good night.
Richard,
So long.
and Pat.
Have,
Night,
have a safe
night,
week.
folks.
Good night.
Yeah, and you have a good week.
No night. No
Bye
night.
bye.
God
Don't
bless.
mention Sinn Féin. Night. Bye bye.
Yeah. No, Bill don't like coming out in the evening. Oh no, he don't
What do you
like.
mean coming out in the evening? Well, the thing is, I thought he was going to tell you that he was going to be joining us now. Oh, never mind.
No, he just don't. It's the wrong time of day for him, you know. He's
Okay.
just got too much on, I think. But don't worry, he's still there. He's still interested. He'll probably
Well,
watch you too.
this is perfect for Henry because he goes dogging most of the day. So he got to take his dog walking.
I'll try
Okay,
and find the dog
right.
first.
I'm gonna
All
go
right.
now, and you can talk to.
Right. So it's just me and you, Henry. So that's good. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Go on.
No, so I left that little gem for you. I thought I'd send you in a different direction.
Oh God! Just think. This is the thing. You know, it's always down to the fact that that most gold in Britain after the Bronze Age is actually found over in Norfolk. And you're thinking, well, there are no gold resources in Norfolk, and you're just thinking we don't find as much gold in Wales after the Bronze Age, even though it originates in Wales. But now you're saying that the Mould Cape, actually, the gold originates in Ireland. That really screws things up. Never mind. And actually, I am going to be doing a class on gold mines in Britain, which will be quite limited, really, in the Bronze Age. So we've got Scotland, we've got Wales, and as Ireland's not part of the United Kingdom, then we won't bother with it.
You're not going to do that one, right? Excellent. I'll leave you to it then.
Oh, we will do the one in Ireland. The thing is, I'm going to be desperate now. I'm trying to put a class on gold resources in Britain, and it's like two of them. I'm thinking, oh, we're going to have to do Ireland as well. We're going to have to do that.
Oh, you'll have to do the Channel Islands as well.
Gold on the Channel Islands.
Imported from France.
Ah, right. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, so they didn't have Welsh gold then. All right, fair enough. All right then.
There you are.
Okay then.
Go and have a lie down in the darkened room. Right.
I'm gonna have a lie down anyway. Exactly. Okay then. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thanks for everything. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
right, there's the red button. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Red button. Good. Good. Anyone watching online now? That's been really good. So anyone who wants to make a donation, certainly can if they so wish. So there we go. And you know what? I've learned how to do this now. So if I do that there, and I do copy, and I go here, and I go bingo. So anyone who wants to make a donation can do this. They can make a donation there if they so wish. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I don't know where everybody has been tonight. Where Black Patch's dog. I'm seeing if there's anything more on the other feeds. Any more questions? So we're going to see this. It's not functioning as well as it did. I might be back over to my other technology next week, so we'll see how it goes. I don't know how the chat's been yet. I'm not getting much on the screen. Anyway, so I tell you what, we'll call it a day now. And I'm just going to go with my chat box to get these recorded. So let's just get the chat box. So start now. Henry says some of these burnt mounds used for metal working. Okay. Just a thought, beer. Using these vats to make beer certainly would be good, wouldn't it? because obviously we got beer. We know about beer back then anyway, and wine in other places. So back to South America, they have found large jugs containing maize beer called chichilla, which is CHICCA. So they have found large jugs containing maize beer called chichilla, right? So that's Amazon, South America, not sort of the burnt mounds. Need to leave now. Thanks to see you next week. Kiss, and that's from Dell. So we have to leave us early. So Dr. S. Needham says the gold is from Ireland. So thought it could go back to Ireland. Just an idea. Oh yeah, that would really help. Great, excellent. Flippin' heck. Does that mean if we get copper objects found in Britain, then the coppers come from Cyprus? It needs to go back to Cyprus. Oh, crap. So that means that any Roman legionary found in Britain who was actually born in Italy needs to go back to Italy. How does all this work? Anyway, thanks for that. Anyone, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for your continued support. And hopefully you've enjoyed this recording. Hopefully you have. Just an idea. God, says the gold is from Ireland, so should it go back to Ireland? Just an idea. Really? You imagine that? The mold cake going back to Ireland. There'd be an absolute, complete uproar. Don't forget to sign my thingy about the protecting the Croggan Oak in North Wales as well. Anyway, just an idea. I've got to go. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.